Sunday Morning Matters on KC24, your local election headquarters.
Obviously, as Californians caring deeply about undocumented residents in this state, to provide supports for those individuals as well. So the answer is yes, all of that is being considered, all part of a broader package where I'll be making some significant adjustments.
With about 2.5 million Californians filing for unemployment benefits and still waiting for the federal stimulus checks to come in, Governor Newsom is now proposing direct payments to undocumented immigrants who weren't eligible for the federal payout. Let's bring in State Senator Andreas Borgeas, representing the 8th District, which is right here in the Central Valley. Senator, welcome back to Sunday Morning Matters. Hope you and the family are healthy and enjoying this Easter weekend.
Alexander, it's great to be back on the show. Thank you.
Well, I want to start with this because Governor Newsom's pledge to help undocumented workers with the stimulus payout, something they didn't receive from Congress in their stimulus package there. Are you in favor of what the governor is proposing?
Well, there are a number of things that I think the governor has done well in this coronavirus pandemic, making certain that he's communicating with folks, that he's taken decisive action, especially in the early days and weeks, that has allowed California to be in a relatively better position than elsewhere in the nation and across the world. I think we have probably a different philosophical approach to this issue. In my opinion, I think we need to make certain that we are looking after the individuals and businesses, the American nationals that we have in this country, who have not yet received their stimulus funding. They have not received their investment from the federal authorities, and nor have we laid out and implemented the expected state funding. So the idea that we are already on the cusp of providing resources to another block of individuals that may not be on the state tax records, I think is premature. I think we need to make certain that we make our investments with our American nationals in keeping our family businesses and our employers and our employees in a better place. So I think at this point it's premature.
Senator, well, let me add this, because I know some undocumented workers do pay taxes, whether they have a Social Security number or some kind of identification number. So what about those folks?
Well, I think, once again, this may need to be a phase 2 consideration, and I have not heard from the governor on what exactly he has in mind. Perhaps it might come in the next week or so, or in the next few days. I'd like to wait and see what the governor is exactly proposing. But if we are looking at investing in California, I think we should probably start with California state income taxpayers. I think that would be the most prudent thing to do out of the gate.
Well, unemployment, boy, is it skyrocketing as we expected. But now nationwide, it's up to 16 million. We're over 2 million in the state of California, as you know. And I'm kind of wondering from you, can the state actually handle the influx of all these millions of people filing for unemployment here in the state? And I know that Assemblymember Jim Patterson also wrote a letter to the governor this week about EDD not being able to handle the load of calls coming in, especially for businesses asking for loans.
Absolutely. I think this is an example where we are having to adapt to remarkable circumstances. I had a briefing with the governor's office. I have spoken with the governor directly in prior conversations, and my understanding, after talking with my colleagues in the Senate who are spearheading this effort with the governor's office, is that personnel have been reprioritized into the appropriate divisions, and they're also taking personnel from elsewhere in the state system to be able to handle these calls. I've heard numbers of around 200 and as high as 400 to make certain that we can more properly and expeditiously respond to the folks that need unemployment resources.
Yeah, and let me get to this, because I think it's interesting that you did this about a few weeks ago, actually. Actually, it's about a couple weeks now. You wrote a letter along with some of your colleagues to Governor Newsom requesting more supplies, medical supplies. Has there been a response to what that letter entailed? And also, we know that the governor did donate 500 ventilators this week to the federal government, saying that maybe the state has enough ventilators to go around at this point, even though you know that our district here, the one you represent, is short on medical supplies. Was that wise to do?
Well, I think what we wanted to do as part of the Valley delegation on a bipartisan basis, we submitted letters as state representatives, and we also wrote a letter that also included federal representatives as well on a bipartisan basis, letting the governor know that there are a couple of things that he needs to be aware of in terms of the Central Valley. One, we have some of the highest asthma rates, and given that coronavirus is a respiratory virus, that we are uniquely susceptible to this in the Valley. The second thing is that the ratio of medical personnel to 100,000 residents is dramatically different in Fresno and the Central Valley to elsewhere in the state. So with the request that we made was for more resources. We also requested that there be a liaison, a contact person, if you will, in the governor's inner circle that we could go to directly for Central Valley related issues. So we have not yet seen the resources that we've been talking about, but we have been made aware that the governor has put back into the national stockpile to be appropriated elsewhere in the nation these 500 ventilators. I do not have the information that may have been used to justify that decision. I do have an outstanding call to try to figure out whether we should be sending out of state or sending out of the Central Valley resources that should be coming to us, or what the timeline and justification are. So I'll have to get back to you on that once we get more information.
Senator, I want to finish with this because we heard something pretty much in the beginning that was disturbing, and that was a letter that Governor Newsom wrote to President Trump saying if we don't do a certain number of things like social distancing and shelter in place, more than 25 million Californians can be infected. One death is one too many. We get that. We understand that. And our hearts go out to all the victims here of this pandemic. But do you think the governor's prediction at that point was more of a scare tactic, and did it work?
Well, I think the governor was in a position leading the most populous state with some of the most sophisticated elements of the American economy. He needed to take very significant and aggressive measures. I don't know the science behind the estimation of the numbers that the governor was representing to the President of the United States. I will, however, give kudos to the governor for being decisive, putting us on the right step early on rather than waiting, as has existed elsewhere in the nation and elsewhere in the world. So I think our numbers are going to improve. We don't know exactly when they're going to improve, but we are optimistic based on the healthcare professionals that we've been speaking to, that the precautions that are in place and the safety protocols are working, and they will continue to work as long as we listen to the health professionals and abide by the recommendations.
All right, State Senator Andreas Borgeas here on Sunday Morning Matters. Happy Easter to you and your family. Stay well.
Thank you, Alexon. Take care. Be safe.
And up next, our panel returns. Should undocumented workers in California receive monetary relief? And should people working on the front lines against the pandemic receive pay? We'll talk about it next.